The velvet curtains of the Grand Lyceum Theater whispered secrets as they parted under the golden glow of gaslights, revealing a stage bathed in crimson shadows. It was 1932, and London's elite had gathered for the premiere of Shadows of Desire, a play promising intrigue and passion. But as the intermission chimes echoed through the opulent auditorium, a piercing scream shattered the murmurs of the audience. Backstage in the labyrinth of dressing rooms, the luminous star Elena Voss lay crumpled on the floor, her throat slashed with surgical precision, a single red rose clutched in her lifeless hand. Who among the glittering cast could have orchestrated such a vanishing act of death? The little gray cells stirred. Hercule Poirot, seated in the royal box, sensed the curtain rising on a far deadlier performance. Chapter 1. The Curtain Rises. The Grand Lyceum Theatre stood as a monument to London's glittering cultural heart, its marble facade gleaming under the soft glow of gaslights on that fateful evening in 1932. Within its velvet-lined auditorium, the air thrummed with anticipation. A heady cocktail of perfume, cigar smoke, and whispered gossip. The elite of the city, lords in tailored evening dress, ladies adorned with pearls and ostrich feathers, had gathered for the premiere of Shadows of Desire, a play touted as the season's triumph. The crimson curtains, heavy with promise, parted to reveal a stage bathed in a chiaroscuro of light and shadow. But it was not the scripted drama that would seize the night. As the intermission chimes told, a scream, sharp, primal, and chilling, pierced the murmurs of the audience, shattering the illusion of civility. Backstage, in the labyrinthine warren of dressing rooms, Elena Voss, the luminous star whose voice could seduce angels, lay crumpled on the floor. Her throat bore a single, surgically precise slash, her lifeless hand clutching a red rose, its petals unmarred by thorns. The theater, a stage for human passions, had become the scene of a murder most foul. Hercule Poirot, like a disturbed hive, ushers scrambling to maintain order as whispers of murder rippled through the crowd. Poirot descended from the box, his polished shoes clicking on the marble stairs, Hastings trailing like a faithful hound. They reached the backstage, a realm of shadows and secrets, where gaslights flickered against mirrored walls, casting distorted reflections. The scent of grease paint mingled with something darker, iron, unmistakable, the tang of blood. Elena Voss's dressing room was cordoned off by a young constable, his face pale as he guarded the grim tableau. The star lay sprawled beside her vanity, her emerald gown fanning out like spilled ink, the crimson stain at her throat stark against her porcelain skin. The rose, vivid against her pallor, seemed almost to pulse with accusation. Inspector Japp of Scotland Yard arrived with his usual bluster, his bowler hat slightly askew. "Poirot, old chap, what brings you here? Not meddling in my jurisdiction again, are you?" His tone was gruff, but his eyes betrayed relief at the detective's presence. Poirot inclined his head. "Mon ami, when murder invades the sanctity of art, Hercule Poirot cannot remain a mere spectator. Tell me, what do we know of the victim and her circle?" Japp sighed, flipping open his notebook. "Elena Voss, 35. Born in Paris, rose from chorus girl to London's darling. A voice like velvet, they say, but a temper to match. She was entangled with Marcus Thorne, the play's director. Quite the scandal. Word is she was also at odds with half the cast. Poirot's gaze swept the room, cataloging details with surgical precision. The vanity mirror was cracked, a spiderweb of fractures radiating from its center, as if struck in a fit of rage. A bottle of champagne sat unopened, a gift from an admirer, its ribbon untouched. The floor bore faint scuff marks, suggesting a struggle, or perhaps a hurried exit. "Hastings," Poirot murmured. "Note the mirror. It was not broken by accident. And the rose, its stem is smooth otherwise. Motive, greed, a poison as old as time." Next was Vivian Lark, the understudy, a young woman of 25 whose sharp features and bob chestnut hair framed eyes that gleamed with ambition. She twisted a lace handkerchief, her voice low but laced with venom. "Elena was a tyrant, Mr. Poirot. She blocked my every chance at the spotlight, called me a shadow without substance. I hated her, I won't deny it, but I didn't kill her." Her alibi was flimsy. She claimed to have been rehearsing lines with a stagehand during intermission, but the boy was conveniently absent. Poirot noted her right-handed gestures, filing the detail away. Motive, ambition. A fire that could consume or destroy. Marcus Thorne, the director, entered next, his lean frame radiating intensity. His dark hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, as if he'd wrestled with demons all night. "I loved Elena," he declared, his voice cracking. "We argued, yes, she ended our affair, but I was in my office, reviewing scripts." Poirot tilted his head. "Monsieur Thorne, love is a dangerous motive. And your hands, they are ambidextrous, non?" Thorne's jaw tightened, his silence louder than words. Motive, a lover scorned, perhaps driven to rage. The final suspect, Lydia Beaumont, the costume designer, glided in with the grace of a fading aristocrat. A widow in her 40s, her silver hair was pinned elegantly, her eyes shadowed with grief. "Elena was my friend," she said softly, "but she carried secrets. She confided in me about a blackmailer, someone in the cast who knew of her past." Poirot's interest piqued. "And what past, madame?" Lydia hesitated. "A child, given up years ago. She feared exposure. Motive, loyalty, twisted into betrayal." As Poirot questioned, a constable interrupted, his face perhaps, or something more sinister. A whisper floated through the air, barely audible. She knew too much. The voice was gone before Poirot could pinpoint it, swallowed by the theater's endless echoes. The gaslights dimmed, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with secrets. The audience, both the theater's patrons and Poirot's suspects, waited, breathless, for the next act. Poirot turned to Jap. "Inspector, secure the theater. No one leaves until we know more." Jap nodded, barking orders. The detective's mind raced, cataloging clues. The thornless rose, a lover's symbol or a taunt. The shattered mirror, a sign of rage or ritual. The prop knife, too obvious to trust. Elena Voss's life, he sensed, held the key. Her affairs, her enemies, her hidden child. The Lyceum was a stage not just for art, but for human frailty. and Poirot would expose its darkest players. The chapter closed with a haunting note. The orchestra, tuning below, struck a discordant chord, as if the theater itself mourned its fallen star. Poirot's eyes gleamed in the half-light. "The little gray cells, they are awake," he murmured, "and they will not rest until justice takes center stage." But as he stepped into the corridor, a chill ran through him. A premonition, perhaps, that the killer's next move was already in motion, hidden in the velvet folds of the Lyceum's grand illusion. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Wings. The backstage corridors of the Grand Lyceum Theater were a labyrinthine realm, where the boundary between reality and illusion dissolved into a haze of flickering gaslights and half-forgotten props. Mirrors lined the walls, multiplying reflections into an infinite gallery of distorted faces, as if the theater itself conspired to deceive the eye. Hercule Poirot navigated this maze with his characteristic precision, his small frame moving with the deliberate grace of a man who trusted not the senses alone, but the unerring logic of his little gray cells. Captain Hastings followed, scent, now tainted by the acrid odor of spilled blood. The vanity table, once a shrine to her beauty, was strewn with overturned pots of rouge and powder, a crystal perfume bottle shattered on the floor like a fallen star. The mirror above it was fractured, its cracks radiating outward in a pattern that suggested not a casual blow, but a deliberate act of fury. Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved hands hovering without touching, his gaze dissecting the scene with the meticulousness of a surgeon. Elena lay there still, her emerald gown pooling around her like a verdant sea, the slash at her throat a precise incision that spoke of intimate knowledge, perhaps of anatomy, or at least of how to wield a blade with lethal intent. In her right hand, the red rose remained clutched, its petals velvety and unbruised, the stem stripped bare of thorns. "Observe, Hastings," Poirot said softly, his voice a murmur in the oppressive silence. "The rose is freshly cut, not an hour old, yet no thorns mar it. This is no accident of nature, it has been prepared, with care. A token of affection, or a mocking gesture from the killer? And the mirror, shattered, yes, but note the angle of the cracks. It was struck from the left, with force enough to break glass but not to shatter it completely. Restraint, even in rage." Hastings peered closer, his face paling. "By Jove, Poirot, you're right. But what does it mean? Some lover's quarrel gone awry?" Poirot rose, dusting his knees. "Perhaps. But let us not speculate prematurely. The theater is a place of artifice where truths are veiled in fiction. We must peel back the layers." As he spoke, Inspector Japp bustled in, his notebook at the ready, accompanied by a pair of constables who began to photograph the scene with bulky flashbulbs. "Poirot, we've got the suspects corralled in the green room. This is a right mess. The press will be all over it by morning. Elena Voss, the darling of the West End, murdered mid-run. Scandalous, penetrating stare. Monsieur Harcourt, your concern for the theater is touching, but let us speak plainly. Madame Voss was more than a star. She was a demand upon your resources, no? Rumors whisper of financial irregularities. Did she threaten to expose your embezzlement?" Harcourt's face flushed crimson, his jowls quivering like jelly. "Embezzlement? Preposterous. Yes, she wanted a larger cut of the profits, 20%, the vixen. But I was negotiating. She was bleeding me dry, true, with her extravagances and her indiscretions. But murder? I'd never stoop to that. It would bankrupt me further. His voice rose in pitch, betraying the lie beneath the bluster. Poirot leaned forward, his tone silken yet unyielding. Ah, but greed, monsieur, is a powerful motive. It drives men to desperate acts. Where were you during the intermission? Harcourt swallowed hard. With investors in the lobby discussing subscriptions. Witnesses can confirm. Poirot filed the alibi away, noting the slight hesitation. Greed indeed, a motive as solid as the theater's foundations, yet perhaps not the only one. Leaving Harcourt to stew, Poirot and his companions moved to interview Lydia Beaumont, the costume designer, in her workshop adjacent to the wings. The room was a riot of fabrics, silks shimmering in jewel tones, bolts of velvet piled high like accumulated secrets, and the air hummed with the faint whir of a sewing machine, now silenced by tragedy. Lydia, a woman of refined elegance in her mid-40s, sat amid the chaos, her silver hair pinned in a chignon, her widow's weeds of black lace lending her an air of tragic poise. Her hands, slender and marked by needle pricks, trembled slightly as she folded a half-finished gown. "Mr. Poirot," she greeted softly, her voice carrying the lilt of a bygone Parisian upbringing. Elena was more than a colleague. She was my confidant. To think she is gone. It shatters me. Poirot inclined his head respectfully. Her expression haunted. She was terrified, Mr. Poirot, whispered of threats during fittings. She confided only that it was someone close, someone who could destroy her with a word. I urged her to go to the police, but pride. It was her downfall. Poirot nodded, his mind whirring. Pride, and perhaps trust misplaced. Your own hands, madame. They are left-handed, I observe. And your sewing shears are sharp indeed. Lydia paled but met his gaze steadily. I am left-handed, yes, but I would never harm her. She was like a sister. Motive lingered in the air. Loyalty twisted into something darker, or genuine grief. Hastings, ever the gallant, interjected gently. Mrs. Beaumont, where were you during intermission? Lydia sighed. Altering a hem in the wardrobe room. Alone, I'm afraid. No alibi but my word. Poirot's eyes gleamed, another thread to weave. Their next inquiry concerned Vivian Lark's alibi, leading them to the understudy's modest dressing room, a stark contrast to Elena's opulence. Vivian was there, applying fresh lipstick with a steady hand that belied her inner turmoil, her bobbed hair framing a face sharp with ambition. Mr. Poirot, I've told the inspector. I was rehearsing lines with young Tommy, the stagehand. He can vouch for me. But when questioned, Tommy was nowhere to be found, vanished like smoke in the wings. Poirot arched an eyebrow. Mademoiselle, a missing witness is most inconvenient. And this quarrel with Madame Voss. Ambition is a flame that burns brightly, no? Vivian's eyes flashed. She called me talentless, blocked my rises. But I didn't kill her. I want the role, not blood on my hands. A false clue, Poirot suspected, or deliberate misdirection to cloud the waters. The tension escalated with Marcus Thorne's arrival, summoned from his office. The director burst in like a tempest, his sharp features twisted in fury, his dark eyes blazing. This is absurd. Accusing me? I loved Elena. Our affair was passion, not deeper into its shadowed heart. The backstage corridors, lined with gilded mirrors and tattered playbills, reflected a distorted reality, as if the theater itself conspired to obscure the truth. The air was thick with the lingering scent of grease paint and tragedy, the echo of Elena Voss's final scream still reverberating in the minds of those who remained. Poirot, his polished shoes clicking with metronomic precision on the worn floorboards, led Captain Hastings toward the dressing room of Vivian Lark, the ambitious understudy whose star had been eclipsed by the murdered diva. "Hastings, mon ami," Poirot said, his voice a low murmur laced with his Belgian accent. "Ambition is a fire that warms the heart or consumes it. Mademoiselle Lark burns brightly. Let us see if her flame has scorched the truth." Hastings, clutching his notebook, nodded eagerly. "By Jove, Poirot, she's got motive enough. Elena kept her in the shadows for years. But murder, that's a leap, isn't it?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the dim gaslight. "A leap, perhaps, but the human heart leaps often into darkness. We shall see." Vivian Lark's dressing room was a stark contrast to Elena's opulent sanctuary, a cramped cell adorned with faded posters of the diva's triumphs, as if mocking Vivian's unfulfilled dreams. A single bulb flickered above a chipped vanity, casting jagged shadows across her reflection. Vivian sat before it, her chestnut bob framing a face sharp with determination, her lips freshly painted a defiant scarlet. She was 25, with eyes that held both hunger and resentment, a coiled spring ready to snap. As Poirot entered, she rose, smoothing her simple frock with hands that trembled slightly, betraying her composure. "Mr. Poirot," she said, her voice steady but edged with defiance. "I've told the inspector everything. I was rehearsing with Tommy, the stagehand, during intermission. I had no reason to harm Elena, despite what people think." Poirot settled into a rickety chair, his posture impeccable, his gaze piercing. "Mademoiselle Lark, ambition is a..." Mustache twitched, a silent signal of skepticism. He noted her right-handed grip on the cigarette, filing it away against the left-handed precision of Elena's wound. "And this quarrel with Madame Voss," he continued. "It was public, no? Witnesses heard raised voices days before her death." Vivian's jaw tightened. "She humiliated me in front of the cast, called me a shadow without substance. I shouted back, yes, but I didn't touch her." Her voice cracked, revealing a flicker of vulnerability beneath the bravado. Poirot's little gray cells whirred. Ambition was her motive, clear as crystal. But was it enough to kill? At that moment, Inspector Japp burst in, his bowler hat askew, clutching a folded piece of paper. "Poirot, we've got something," he announced, thrusting the note forward. "Found this in Miss Lark's purse, a letter threatening Elena. Listen to this. Step aside or face the consequences. Signed with a V." Vivian's face drained of color, her cigarette dropping to the floor. "That's not mine," she cried, her voice rising to a near hysterical pitch. "Someone planted it. I'd never write such a thing." Poirot took the letter, his gloved fingers tracing the sharp angular script. "A forgery, perhaps," he mused. "Or a truth dressed in deception. The ink is fresh, the paper uncreased. Too perfect, no? A red herring to lead us astray." Japp grunted, unconvinced. "Looks damning to me, Poirot. She's got motive, opportunity, and now this. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Too damning, Inspector. The true killer does not leave such obvious breadcrumbs. Leaving Vivian under guard, Poirot and Hastings moved to Marcus Thorne's office, a cluttered den reeking of cigar smoke and desperation. The director, a lean man with sharp features and bloodshot eyes, paced like a caged panther, his dark hair disheveled. Hastings, ever eager, interjected. Thorne, old chap, there's talk you owed money, big sums. Did Elena threaten to expose you? Thorne's face darkened. She knew about the debts, yes. Threatened to tell Harcourt, ruin my career. But I didn't kill her. His voice rose, a raw edge betraying fear. Poirot filed the admission away. Blackmail, another thread in the tapestry. But was it the fatal one? The investigation pivoted back to the crime scene, where Poirot insisted on a second examination. The dressing room remained as they left it, Elena's body now covered with a sheet, the rose still vivid against the somber scene. Poirot knelt, his eyes scanning the floor. Hastings. Observe the scuff marks, faint but deliberate, leading toward the mirror. And the shards, some are missing as if taken. He rose, moving to the vanity, where a single earring, an emerald to match the missing necklace, glinted in the debris. Curious, he murmured. The necklace is gone, but this remains. A thief interrupted, or a deliberate omission. Jap, hovering nearby, scratched his head. Could be a robbery gone wrong, Poirot. That necklace was worth a fortune. Poirot shook his head. No, Inspector. The murder is the heart of this crime. The theft is but a flourish. Lydia Beaumont was summoned next, her presence a quiet counterpoint to the storm of accusations. She entered the green room, her silver hair catching the light like moonlight on a still pond, her expression one of restrained grief. Mr. Poirot? Have you found her killer? She asked, her voice soft but steady. Poirot regarded her closely, noting her left-handed grip on a skein of silk thread. Madame Beaumont, you spoke of a blackmailer. Did Madame Voss name this shadow? Lydia hesitated, her eyes flickering with something, fear or guilt. She only said it was someone in the cast, someone who knew of her child. She was frantic, sewing secrets into her costumes as if fabric could protect her. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And your shears, madame, they are sharp. Through the theater's oppressive silence, the cast froze, eyes wide, as footsteps echoed, then faded into the labyrinthine backstage. Poirot's voice cut through the chaos. Mes amis, the killer moves among us, weaving deception like a master playwright. But Hercule Poirot sees through the script. Yet as he spoke, a chill ran through him. A whisper from the shadows, too faint to trace. The curtain falls soon. The gaslights flickered, casting the theater into a twilight of doubt. The audience, both within the story and without, left breathless on the edge of revelation. Chapter 4. Whispers from the Past. The Grand Lyceum Theatre, its gilded arches cloaked in the fog of a 1932 London evening, seemed to breathe with a life of its own, its velvet curtains and shadowed corners harboring secrets as old as the tragedies it staged. Hercule Poirot, his meticulous steps echoing in the backstage corridors, felt the weight of the mystery pressing upon his little gray cells. The murder of Elena Voss, the luminous star whose throat was slashed with surgical precision, was no mere act of passion, but a calculated performance, its script hidden in the past. Captain Hastings, ever the loyal shadow, trailed behind, his notebook clutched tightly. Poirot, this place feels like a mausoleum, he remarked, his voice hushed as if wary of disturbing unseen specters. "That screen last night. Do you think the killer's still here, watching us?" Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming in the dim gaslight. "Mon cher Hastings, the killer is indeed close, weaving a web of misdirection. But the past, it whispers truths the present seeks to silence. We must listen." Their investigation led them beyond the Lyceum's opulent facade to Elena's Mayfair apartment, a sanctuary of Art Deco splendor where crystal decanters glinted on lacquered tables and silk drapes framed windows overlooking the city's twinkling lights. The air was heavy with her signature lily perfume, now tinged with the melancholy of absence. Poirot, gloved hands clasped behind his back, surveyed the room with the glittering reputation. Poirot sifted through the letters, finding one dated mere weeks before the murder. "The child seeks you now. Pay, or all is lost." The threat was clear, its author veiled. Poirot's mind raced. Could this child, now grown, have resurfaced in London, entwined with the theater's cast? Or was R.T. a figure closer to home, hiding among the suspects? Back at the Lyceum, Poirot summoned Lydia Beaumont to the green room, its plush furnishings now a stage for confrontation. Lydia entered, her silver hair catching the light like a halo, her widow's weeds lending her an air of tragic dignity. Her left hand, Poirot noted, clutched a silk handkerchief, a subtle tremor betraying her calm. "Madame Beaumont," he began, his voice silken yet incisive. "You spoke of Madame Voss's fear, a child, a blackmailer. Tell me, did she ever mention this R.T.?" Lydia's eyes flickered, a shadow passing over her refined features. "No, Mr. Poirot, never by name. But she was haunted, stitching her fears into every seam I crafted for her. She said the past was catching up, that someone in the cast knew her shame." Poirot leaned forward, his gaze unrelenting. "And you, madame, your loyalty to her was profound. Yet love can curdle into betrayal. Your shears, so sharp, could they not cut more than cloth?" Lydia gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "You wound me, sir. I loved Elena like a sister. My shears are for art, not murder." Yet her left-handedness, matching the fatal wound's angle, lingered in Poirot's calculations. Hastings, ever empathetic, softened the tension. "Mrs. Beaumont, where were you during intermission? You mentioned being alone. Can anyone confirm that?" Lydia's shoulders sagged. "No, Captain. I was in my workshop, elusive." Inspector Japp, bustling in with his usual vigor, brought fresh evidence. "Poirot, we've tested that champagne bottle. No poison, but fingerprints. Thorne's and Vivian's, but not Elena's. Odd, wouldn't you say?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "Curieux indeed. A bottle untouched by its owner, yet handled by suspects. Another thread, perhaps misdirection." Japp grunted. "I'm liking Vivian for this. Her letter, her fingerprints. She's got ambition enough to kill." Poirot, however, was not convinced, and turned his attention to Vivian Lark. They found her in the auditorium, pacing the aisles, her bobbed hair swinging with agitation. "Mademoiselle Locke," Poirot said, his voice cutting through her restlessness. "Your alibi remains unverified. Tommy the stagehand is missing. And this letter, V for Vivian, no? A threat to your rival." Vivian's eyes flashed with fury. "I told you it's a forgery. Someone's framing me. Thorne, probably, to cover his own tracks." Her right hand gestured wildly, a stark contrast to the left-handed precision of the murder. Poirot's mind catalogued the discrepancy, but her desperation rang true. Or was it an actress's skill? The green room became a crucible as Poirot gathered the suspects: Harcourt, Lydia, Thorne, and Vivian. Each face a mask of fear or defiance. Tensions simmered like a pot on the boil. Vivian accused Thorne of abusing Elena, her voice shrill. "He controlled her, manipulated her," Thorne shot back. "You wanted her role, you vixen." Harcourt blustered about financial ruin while Lydia remained silent, her eyes downcast. Poirot watched, his little gray cells weaving connections. A false clue surfaced, a glove matching Vivian's found near Elena's body, its fabric stained with stage blood. "Too convenient," Poirot murmured to Hastings. "Planted, perhaps, to point the finger." The chapter's climax came with a discovery that shifted the stage. Corner. Lydia, whose workshop adjoined the backstage. Thorne, who knew the theater's secrets. Vivian, whose ambition burned unchecked. Poirot's voice cut through the gathering dusk. "Mes amis, the past whispers, but the present screams for justice. This passage is a clue, but not the solution. We must dig deeper into the heart of Elena's secrets." Chapter 5. The Director's Deception. The Grand Lyceum Theater, its gilded interior now shrouded in the somber gloom of a 1932 London night, seemed to pulse with the weight of its own secrets. The velvet curtains, heavy with the ghosts of past performances, swayed faintly as if stirred by an unseen hand. Hercule Poirot, his meticulous steps echoing in the backstage corridors, felt the threads of the mystery tightening around his little gray cells. The murder of Elena Voss, her throat slashed with chilling precision, a thornless rose clutched in her lifeless hand, was a puzzle of human passions, each suspect a player in a deadly drama. Captain Hastings, trailing behind, clutched his notebook, his face etched with unease. "Poirot, this place is a maze of lies," he whispered, glancing at the flickering gaslights. "Thorne's temper, Vivian's ambition, how do we untangle it all?" Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming like polished jet. "Mon cher Hastings, lies are but shadows cast by truth. We must shine a light on the director, Monsieur Thorne. His heart, it beats with deception. Let us see how it falters." They found Marcus Thorne in his office, a cluttered den buried deep in the theater's labyrinth, its air thick with cigar smoke and the sour tang of desperation. The director, lean and sharp-featured, paced like a caged beast, his dark hair disheveled, his bloodshot eyes betraying sleepless nights. Papers, scripts, betting slips, and crumpled letters littered his desk, a testament to a life unraveling. Poirot settled into a worn leather chair, his posture impeccable, his gaze unrelenting. "Monsieur Thorne," he began, his Belgian accent cutting through the haze. Your love for Madame Voss, it was a storm, no? Passionate, yet poisoned by her rejection. Tell me of this argument, its true nature. Thorne stopped pacing, his hands clenching into fists. One left, slammed his fist on the desk, rattling a glass ashtray. I'm no murderer. Someone's framing me. That knife in my trunk, it's a plant. Poirot's eyes narrowed, noting the desperation, the crack in the director's facade. A motive of self-preservation, cloaked in passion, was emerging. But was it the whole truth? Inspector Japp burst in, his bowler hat askew, his face flushed with triumph. Poirot, we've got her, he declared, waving a report. Vivian Locke, her fingerprints are on the prop knife, the one with Elena's blood. She's under arrest, and I'd say this case is wrapped up. Poirot's mustache twitched, his expression skeptical. Mon ami, it is too neat, this evidence. Fingerprints on a prop. In a theater where props pass through many hands. No, the gray cells protest. This is a red herring, meant to distract. Japp frowned, unconvinced. You're too clever by half, Poirot. Motive, opportunity, evidence. She's our girl. Poirot rose, adjusting his lapels. Then let us test this theory. To Mademoiselle Lark. They found Vivian in a holding room, a stark cell beneath the theater's grandeur, her bobbed hair disheveled, her eyes blazing with defiance. She stood as Poirot entered, her right hand gripping the edge of a table. Mr. Poirot, this is a travesty, she cried. That knife, I never touched it. Someone's framing me. Probably Thorne to cover his own guilt. Poirot regarded her calmly, his gaze dissecting her every gesture. Mademoiselle, your ambition is a flame that burns brightly. But these fingerprints, how do they appear on a weapon you claim never to have held? Vivian's voice trembled, but her chin lifted. I handled props during rehearsal. Knives, swords, all sorts. Someone could have used my prints, transferred them. I'm no fool, Mr. Poirot. I wanted Elena's role, not her blood. Her right-handed gestures clashed with the left-handed wound, a discrepancy Poirot filed away. And your alibi? Her hands. But I never thought. Not murder. Poirot's eyes sharpened. And your own heart, madame? Elena stole your late husband's affections, no? A wound that lingers. Lydia's face paled, her left hand trembling. That was years ago, Mr. Poirot. I forgave her for our friendship's sake. But yes, it hurt, deeply. Her motive, unrequited love or lingering resentment, hung in the air like a shadow. Hastings, ever curious, interjected. Mrs. Beaumont, those shears, sharp enough to cut more than fabric, I'd wager. Lydia's eyes flashed with indignation. They're tools of my craft, Captain, not weapons. I'd never harm Elena, yet Poirot noted the shears' keen edge, their left-handed grip, and filed the detail alongside her fragile alibi. As the investigation deepened, a stagehand delivered a startling find, a glove matching Vivian's, stained with stage blood, found near the hidden passage. Poirot examined it, his fingers tracing the fabric. Another red herring, he murmured to Hastings, planted to point to Mademoiselle Lark. Yet the blood is not Elena's, too theatrical, too staged. Japp, hovering nearby, grumbled, You see conspiracies everywhere, Poirot. Why not the obvious? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Because, mon ami, the obvious is the killer's greatest ally. The chapter's tension peaked with a chilling interruption. As Poirot and Hastings reviewed notes in the green room, a folded note slipped under the door, its script hurried but deliberate. Beware the velvet trap. Poirot unfolded it, his eyes narrowing. Vraiment, the killer grows bold, taunting us. Hastings shivered. A trap, Poirot? Are we in danger? Before Poirot could reply, the gaslights flickered, plunging the room into shadow. Footsteps echoed in the hidden passage, rapid and retreating, and Poirot sprang to action, flashlight in hand. The narrow corridor was a tunnel of dust and secrets, its walls closing in like a vice. As they pursued, the passage twisted, leading to a dead end, a false wall, sealed tight. Poirot's light caught a glint, a single emerald precision. A thornless rose clutched in her lifeless hand was a tapestry of deception, and the newly discovered passage behind the stage was a thread leading to its heart. Captain Hastings, his face pale in the flickering gaslight, clutched his notebook, his voice trembling. Poirot, that trap. It was meant for us. This theater is a labyrinth of danger. Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. Mon cher Hastings, the killer plays a dangerous game, but Hercule Poirot is no mere pawn. This passage, it is a stage unseen, where the murderer danced their deadly steps. We must follow. The passage, a narrow tunnel of dust and secrets, connected Elena's dressing room to the backstage wings, its walls lined with forgotten props and faded playbills. Poirot's flashlight swept over the footprints, small, smudged, suggesting haste or cunning. Observe, Hastings, he murmured, kneeling to examine the marks. These prints are fresh, likely a woman's or a man with small feet. But see the scuffing, deliberate, to obscure identity. The killer is meticulous, yet panicked. Hastings shivered, his breath visible in the chill air. Anyone could have slipped through here. Thorne, Vivian, even Lydia. It's a perfect escape route. Poirot nodded, his little gray cells whirring. Exactement. The theater is a house of illusions, and this passage is its hidden heart. But whose heart beats with guilt? Back in the green room, Poirot confronted Reginald Harcourt, the theater's owner, whose florid cheeks and garish cravat belied a man teetering on ruin. Harcourt paced, mopping his brow with a silk handkerchief, his small eyes darting like a cornered animal's. Mr. Poirot, this is madness, he blustered. A hidden passage? I knew nothing of it. My theater is respectable, not a den of murder. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, his voice silken yet sharp. Monsieur Harcourt, you claim ignorance, yet as owner, you know every crevice of this. Poirot tilted his head, his eyes dissecting her every word. Mademoiselle Lark, your ambition burns brightly, but your alibi, young Tommy, the stagehand, remains elusive. Tell me, what did you rehearse with him? Vivian's eyes flickered, but she held firm. Lines from the second act, in the props room. He'll tell you, if you find him. Poirot's mustache twitched. And this props room, near the passage, nom. A convenient place to slip away. Vivian's jaw tightened. I was there, I swear. Poirot's mind catalogued her right-handedness against the left-handed wound, her desperation a possible mask for cunning. Inspector Japp, bustling in with his usual vigor, brought a new lead. Poirot, we've searched Thorne's props, found a second knife, clean, a duplicate of the murder weapon, hidden in a costume trunk, same as the first. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Vraiment? A duplicate? The killer is a master of misdirection, planting clues like props in a play. This clean knife, it suggests forethought, a plan to confuse. Japp scratched his head. You're saying it's another red herring? Poirot nodded. Exactement, Inspector. The true weapon lies elsewhere. Or perhaps not a knife at all. Lydia Beaumont was next, found in her workshop, surrounded by bolts of velvet and silk, her silver hair catching the gaslight like moonlight. Her left hand, Poirot noted, wielded her shears with precision, their edge sharp enough to match Elena's wound. Madame Beaumont, he began, his tone gentle yet probing. This passage, did you know of it, working so near the backstage? Lydia's eyes widened, her hand pausing mid-stitch. No, Mr. Poirot, I swear. I spend my days with needle and thread, not exploring tunnels. Elena was my friend. Her death breaks my heart. Poirot leaned closer, his voice soft but incisive. And yet, madam, her diary speaks of betrayal, of a shadow close to her. Your love evidence in the auditorium. A scream shattered the silence. A woman's cry, raw and terrified, from the backstage. They raced toward it, finding a crowd gathered around a crumpled figure in the wings. It was Tommy, the missing stagehand, his throat slashed with the same precision as Elena's, his eyes wide with the horror of his final moment. Jap cursed, kneeling beside the body. Good God, Poirot, another murder. Same method, left-handed, clean cut. Copycat or accomplice? Poirot's face was grim, his flashlight sweeping the scene. No, Inspector, this is no copycat. Tommy saw something, or someone. The killer silenced him, but in haste, they leave tracks. He pointed to fresh footprints in the dust, leading back to the passage, small and smudged like before. The cast summoned to the green room erupted in panic. Vivian sobbed. Tommy was my alibi. He's dead because of me. Thorne roared. This is madness. Someone's targeting us all. Harcourt blustered. The Lyceum's cursed. Only Lydia remained silent, her eyes fixed on her shears, their gleam a silent question. Poirot's voice cut through the chaos. Mes amis, the killer grows desperate, striking to protect their secret. But the gray cells of Hercule Poirot see through the shadows. He knelt by Tommy's body, noting a scrap of fabric clutched in his hand. Velvet, emerald green, like Elena's gown. A clue, he murmured. Or another deception. The theater's orchestra struck a haunting note below, its melody twisting like a knife in the dark. The second murder cast a pall over the Lyceum, its velvet folds now a shroud for two souls. Poirot's resolve hardened, his mind racing through motives and clues. The thornless rose, the shattered mirror, the hidden passage, now a second body. The killer believes they are clever, he told Hastings. But cleverness betrays itself. We are close, mon ami, like twin stars in the gloom. No, mon cher Hastings, not the theater, but a human hand, cunning and desperate. The shadow of blackmail looms large, and we must chase it into the light. The hidden passage, a secret artery behind the stage, had become the killer's unseen stage, its dusty confines linking Elena's dressing room to the heart of the Lyceum. Poirot, flashlight in hand, retraced the footprints, small, smudged, suggesting a woman's shoe or a man's deliberate disguise. The scrap of emerald velvet clutched in Tommy's lifeless hand, matching Elena's gown, was a clue too vivid to ignore. "This fabric," Poirot murmured, holding it to the light. "It is no accident. The killer left it, perhaps in haste or as a taunt. But why?" Hastings shivered, his breath clouding in the chill air. "Could it be Lydia's work? She handles all the costumes." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps, but the gray cells suspect a deeper game. Let us unravel the blackmailer's shadow." Their investigation turned to Elena's past, the key to her murder. Poirot, with Inspector Japp's reluctant approval, accessed records from a discreet agency in Paris where Elena had begun her career. A telegram arrived, its contents chilling. Elena's child, a daughter born out of wedlock, had been adopted by a family tied to Reginald Harcourt's sister, a connection buried in time. "Mon Dieu," Poirot breathed. "The child links to Harcourt. Did he know? Did he use this to control Elena?" Hastings frowned, scribbling notes. "Harcourt's desperate to save the Lyceum. Could he have silenced her to protect this secret?" Poirot nodded. "A motive most compelling, but not alone." They confronted Harcourt in his office, a cluttered sanctuary of ledgers and cigar stubs, the air thick with the scent of his nervous sweat. The theater owner, his florid cheeks quivering, mopped his brow with a silk handkerchief, his garish cravat a mockery of his composure. "Mr. Poirot, this is absurd," his tone calm but unrelenting. "Elena blackmailed you over forged checks, no? But was there more? Perhaps a child. Your child." Thorne's eyes blazed, his ambidextrous hands clenching. "A child? She never spoke of it to me. Yes, she held those checks over my head, threatened to ruin me. But I loved her, despite her cruelty." His voice cracked, a raw edge of despair. Poirot pressed further. "And Tommy, the stagehand. Did he see you in the passage, perhaps, during intermission?" Thorne's face paled. "I was nowhere near that passage. I was in my office, alone, but a witness, a chorus girl, had seen him lingering near the wings, contradicting his claim." Poirot's mind catalogued the lie, his ambidexterity a lingering question against the left-handed wounds. Vivian Lark, still shaken by her brief arrest, was next. In her dressing room, surrounded by posters of Elena's triumphs, she lit a cigarette with a trembling right hand, her bobbed hair framing a face taut with defiance. "Mr. Poirot, Tommy's death. It's my fault," she whispered, her eyes glistening. "He was my alibi, and now he's gone because I named him." Poirot's gaze was steady. "Mademoiselle, guilt is a heavy burden. But is it for murder or merely misfortune? The glove, the knife, both point to you, yet seem too perfect." Vivian exhaled sharply. "I told you. I'm being framed. Thorne, he hated Elena's rejection, and he knows this theater's secrets." Her right-handedness clashed with the murder's precision, but her desperation rang true. Or was it an actress's art? Lydia Beaumont in her workshop offered a new clue. Her silver hair gleamed as she presented a bouquet of roses, identical to the one found in Elena's hand. "These were delivered to her dressing room that night," she said, her left hand trembling slightly. "I thought they were from an admirer, but came with a chilling twist." As Poirot returned to his temporary office, a cramped box room near the stage, A package awaited, wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside, a box of chocolates, their rich aroma laced with something acrid. Poison, confirmed by Jap's quick test. A note, in the same hurried script as the previous warning, read, "The velvet trap closes." Poirot's heart raced, his mind alight with possibilities. "Mon Dieu," he murmured to Hastings. "The killer grows reckless, striking at us directly. But this poison, it is theatrical, a gesture to unnerve." Hastings paled. "Poirot, we're targets now. Who sent it?" Poirot's eyes narrowed, scanning the suspects' faces in memory. Harcourt's sweat, Thorne's rage, Vivian's tears, Lydia's silence. The theater's orchestra struck a discordant note below, its melody a dirge for the mounting dead. The second murder and the poisoned gift cast a pall over the Lyceum, its velvet folds now a shroud for secrets. Poirot's resolve hardened, his voice cutting through the gloom. "The blackmailer's shadow grows long, mes amis, but Hercule Poirot sees its shape. The roses, the passage, the velvet scrap. They point to a truth buried deep." As they retreated, a faint rustle echoed in the wings, a shadow slipping away, leaving only the whisper of danger. The curtain of suspicion hung heavier, and the next act promised a reckoning. Chapter 8. Gathering the Threads. The Grand Lyceum Theatre, its gilded halls cloaked in the oppressive fog of a 1932 London night, stood as a labyrinth of secrets, its velvet curtains trembling as if stirred by the weight of two murders. Hercule Poirot, his small frame radiating quiet intensity, stood in the auditorium center, the gaslights casting long shadows that danced like specters across the crimson seats. The murders of Elena Voss, her throat slashed with surgical precision, voice resonant yet measured. "Mes amis," he began, his Belgian accent cutting through the silence. "The Lyceum is a theater of illusion, but murder is no mere performance. Elena Voss and young Tommy were silenced by a hand both cunning and cruel. The rose without thorns, the shattered mirror, the hidden passage, the poisoned gift. These are not random props, but threads in a tapestry of guilt. Let us weave them together." Reginald Harcourt, the theater's owner, shifted uneasily, his florid cheeks glistening with sweat, his garish cravat askew. "Mr. Poirot, this is preposterous," he blustered, mopping his brow with a silk handkerchief. "I've told you, I was with investors. My alibi's solid." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Monsieur Harcourt, your embezzlement was a secret Elena threatened to expose, no? And your sister's adopted daughter, Elena's child, perhaps. A motive entwined with family and finance." Harcourt's jowls quivered, his voice rising. "I knew nothing of her child. My accounts, yes, I juggled them, but murder? Never." Poirot noted the tremor in his left hand, matching the killer's precision. But his alibi held firm, too firm, perhaps. A rehearsed truth. Marcus Thorne, the director, stood next, his lean frame taut with defiance, his bloodshot eyes blazing. "You're grasping at shadows, Poirot," he growled, his ambidextrous hands clenching. "I loved Elena, despite her blackmail. I was in my office, not that passage." Poirot tilted his head, his voice silken yet piercing. "Monsieur Thorne, your love was a storm, and storms destroy. Your forged checks, your debts. Elena held your ruin in her hands. And your presence near the passage contradicts your solitude." Thorne's jaw tightened, his voice raw. "I fetched her a drink, nothing more. Someone planted that knife in my trunk." Poirot's eyes narrowed, cataloging Thorne's ambidexterity. A left-handed strike was within his grasp, yet his passionate hand, Poirot noted, rested on a skein of velvet, its emerald hue echoing the scrap in Tommy's hand. "Madame Beaumont," Poirot said, his tone gentle yet probing. "Your loyalty to Elena was profound, yet tinged with pain. Her theft of your husband's heart, your solitude during the murders. And those shears, so sharp, match the wound's precision." Lydia's eyes widened, her voice soft but steady. "I loved Elena, despite her flaws. My shears are for art, not blood. I was alone, yes, but innocent. Her left-handedness, her access to the passage, her knowledge of Elena's secrets, all pointed to her, yet her grief seemed unfeigned." Poirot stepped into the center, his voice rising like a conductor's baton. "Let us debunk the red herrings. The knife with Mademoiselle Lark's fingerprints? Transferred perhaps via the glove. Stage blood, not Elena's, a prop in a killer's play. The letter signed V, a forgery, its ink too fresh. Monsieur Thorne's argument overheard by witnesses. Timed incorrectly, too early for the murder. Madame Beaumont's shears, sharp, yes, but dulled by daily use, unlike the weapon's edge. The suspects shifted, their faces a gallery of fear and defiance. Poirot's eyes gleamed. But one clue shines true. The missing necklace. Elena's emerald heirloom, hidden in the passage. Not stolen for profit, but kept as a trophy. Or a misdirection. He paused, letting the silence weigh heavy, then continued. The rose stripped of thorns speaks of love betrayed. The mirror, shattered from the left, suggests rage restrained. The passage with its small footprints points to cunning. And Tommy's death, silenced for what he saw. The killer is among you, weaving deception like a master playwright. The chandelier flickered, casting shadows that seemed to writhe, as if the theater itself recoiled from the truth. The chapter's climax erupted with a gunshot, a sharp crack that shattered the silence. The suspects gasped, ducking instinctively. The velvet scrap, the passage's footprints, the thornless rose, all pointed to a killer with intimate knowledge of the theater and Elena's life. The blackmailer's shadow grows desperate, Poirot murmured. But desperation reveals truth. We are close, mes amis. So close. The orchestra below struck a discordant note, its melody a requiem for the mounting chaos. The gunshot had shattered the Lyceum's fragile calm, its velvet folds now a battlefield of suspicion. Poirot's resolve hardened, his voice cutting through the gloom. The killer believes they hold the stage, but Hercule Poirot rewrites the script. The next act will unmask them. As the suspects dispersed, a faint rustle echoed in the wings, a shadow retreating, a whisper of danger lingering. The curtain of truth was rising, but blood had yet to dry. Chapter 9. The Velvet Trap. The Grand Lyceum Theatre, its gilded arches shrouded in the fog of a 1932 London night, stood as a cathedral of secrets, its velvet curtains trembling as if recoiling from the bloodshed within. Hercule Poirot, His small frame, radiating unyielding resolve, stood in the wings, the echo of the recent gunshot still ringing in his ears. The murders of Elena Voss, her throat slashed with chilling precision, and Tommy, the stagehand, killed in identical fashion, had woven a tapestry of terror, now compounded by the grazing of Captain Hastings' arm, a warning from a desperate killer. Hastings, pale but resolute, clutched his bandaged arm, his voice steady despite the pain. "Poirot, that shot was meant to scare us off, but we're closer than ever, aren't we?" Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming like twin beacons in the gloom. "Oui, mon cher Hastings. The killer's boldness betrays their fear. The velvet trap closes, but it is they who are ensnared. The gray cells of Hercule Poirot see the pattern. Tonight, we tighten the noose." The auditorium, its crimson seats empty under the flickering chandelier, was a stage for Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth. The hidden passage, the thornless road, rested on a skein of emerald velvet, its hue matching the scrap in Tommy's hand. "Madame Beaumont," Poirot said, his tone gentle yet incisive. "You loved Elena, yet your heart bore scars. Her theft of your husband's affections, your solitude during the murders, and those shears, so sharp, match the wound's precision." Lydia's eyes widened, her voice trembling but firm. "Mr. Poirot, I confess I argued with Elena that night. She mocked my loyalty, said I clung to her like a shadow. But I didn't kill her. My shears are for fabric, not flesh." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "An argument, madame? And Tommy, did he see you in the passage, perhaps?" Lydia's hand shook, her left-handed grip tightening. "I was in my workshop, alone. I swear it." Her partial confession hung heavy, her motive, wounded pride or deeper betrayal, now a vivid thread. Vivian Lark, the understudy, stood next, her bobbed hair framing a face pale with defiance, her right hand twisting a handkerchief. "Mademoiselle Lark," Poirot continued, "your ambition burned for Elena's spotlight. The glove, the knife with your prints, red herrings perhaps, but damning. And Tommy, your alibi, silenced forever." Vivian's eyes flashed with tears and fury. "I told you I'm being framed. Thorne, he abused Elena, controlled her. He knew the passage, the props. It's him." Her voice cracked, revealing a raw edge of truth, or a performance honed by years in the shadows. Poirot noted her right-handedness, clashing with the left-handed wounds, but her desperation suggested knowledge unspoken. Marcus Thorne, the director, was a storm of rage and despair, his lean frame taut, his ambidextrous hands clenching. "Monsieur Thorne," Poirot said, his voice silken yet piercing, "your love for Elena was a tempest, shattered by her blackmail over your forged checks. You were seen near the passage, surgical, pointed to Lydia or Harcourt, yet Thorne's ambidexterity muddied the waters. The thornless rose, a symbol of love stripped bare, suggested intimacy. Thorne's affair, Lydia's loyalty, or something deeper. The emerald velvet scrap linked to Lydia's workshop, but its presence in Tommy's hand hinted at a plant. The hidden passage, accessible to all, was the killer's stage, its footprints suggesting a woman or a man with cunning. Tommy's death, Poirot reasoned, was no coincidence. He had seen the killer, perhaps in the passage, and paid with his life. To test his theory, Poirot orchestrated a subtle trap. He instructed Japp to spread a rumor among the cast. A witness had seen the killer's shadow in the passage, holding a glinting object, perhaps the missing necklace. The bait was set, and Poirot watched the suspect's reactions. Vivian grew pale, her right hand trembling. Harcourt sweated profusely, his alibi reiterated. Lydia's eyes darted, her left hand clutching her shears. Thorne's rage flared, accusing Vivian of lies. The rumor stirred the pot, and Poirot's eyes gleamed. Someone would falter. The chapter's climax erupted in the wings where Poirot had gathered the suspects for a final confrontation. As they stood amid the shadows of forgotten props, a figure bolted. Thorne, his lean frame darting toward the passage. "Stop him!" Japp shouted. But Thorne vanished into the tunnel, his footsteps echoing like a drumbeat of guilt. Poirot, flashlight in hand, pursued, Hastings and Japp close behind. The passage twisted, its walls closing in, dust choking the air. At a dead end they found Thorne, cornered, his face a mask of defiance. "You can't prove anything," he roared, his hands raised, left, then right, a blur of ambiguity. Poirot's voice was calm, lethal. "Monsieur Thorne, you flee like a guilty man. The passage, the rose, the velvet scrap, they point to you. But are you alone in this crime?" A gasp came from behind, Lydia, retreating. A whisper of danger lingering. The curtain of truth was rising, but blood still stained the stage. Chapter 10, The Final Curtain. The Grand Lyceum Theater, its gilded arches shrouded in the fog-soaked gloom of a 1932 London night, stood as a silent witness to a drama far darker than any staged within its velvet folds. Hercule Poirot, his small frame taut with the weight of 2 murders and a near-fatal attack on Captain Hastings, pursued Marcus Thorne through the labyrinthine backstage, the echo of the director's fleeing footsteps a drumbeat of guilt. The murders of Elena Voss, her throat slashed with surgical precision, and Tommy, the stagehand, killed to silence his witness, had woven a tapestry of deception. Thornless roses, hidden passages, emerald velvet scraps, poisoned chocolates, and a gunshot in the dark. Now, on the theater's rooftop, under a sky heavy with storm clouds, Poirot stood poised to unmask the killer. Hastings, his arm bandaged but his spirit unbroken, stood beside him, his voice low. "Poirot, Thorne's cornered, but is he the only one? That rustle in the passage, someone else is out there." Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming like twin stars. "Oui, mon cher Hastings. The gray cells have unraveled the threads. The curtain rises on the final act, and the truth will take center stage." The rooftop, slick with mist, was a desolate stage, its edges framed by the Lyceum's ornate cornices, the wind howling like a banshee through the chimneys. Thorne, his lean frame silhouetted against the storm, stood at the parapet, his sharp features twisted in defiance. "You've nothing on me, Poirot," he shouted, his ambidextrous hands gripping the railing, now left, now right, a blur of ambiguity. Poirot advanced, his polished shoes steady on the wet stone, his voice calm yet lethal. "Monsieur Thorne, you flee like a guilty man. The affair with Elena soured when she discovered your forged checks, no? You slashed her throat to silence her blackmail, planted the knife. Her left hand clutched a pair of shears, their glint matching the storm's lightning. "Madame Beaumont," Poirot said, his tone both gentle and unrelenting. "Your loyalty to Monsieur Thorne was more than friendship, no? You loved him, aided him, perhaps even wielded the blade. Lydia's face crumpled, her voice a broken whisper. I loved Marcus, yes. Elena. She mocked me. Stole my husband years ago, then threatened to take him too. We planned it together. For freedom. Thorne's head snapped toward her, his eyes wide with betrayal. Lydia, no, don't! But Poirot's voice cut through, relentless. Madame, you provided the shears, sharp and left-handed, to match the wounds. You stripped the rose of thorns, a symbol of your shared betrayal. The passage. You knew its secrets. Slipped through to plant clues, to kill Tommy when he saw too much. Lydia's tears fell, her left hand trembling as she dropped the shears. We had no choice, she sobbed. Elena's blackmail would have destroyed us both, Marcus's career, my honor. The child. It was his, and she used it against us. Poirot stepped closer, his eyes dissecting their guilt. The necklace, madame. The emerald heirloom. You hid it in the passage, not for profit, but as a trophy of your triumph. And the velvet scrap from Elena's gown, planted in Tommy's hand to point to Mademoiselle Lark. Thorne's defiance crumbled, his voice hoarse. We pawned the necklace for escape funds, thinking we'd flee to Paris. But Tommy, he saw Lydia in the passage, overheard us. I had to silence him. Poirot nodded, his voice grave. A double crime, born of love and greed, cloaked in the theater's illusions. The mirror, shattered by your rage. The rose, stripped by your hands. The passage, your secret stage. But Hercule Poirot sees through the script. Jap, his revolver steady, signaled to constables emerging from the rooftop door. Once more. Vivian Lark, cleared of suspicion, would take the stage, her ambition tempered by the tragedy. Harcourt, his embezzlement exposed but not prosecuted, vowed to rebuild the Lyceum's fortunes. Yet as Poirot descended the rooftop stairs, a faint rustle echoed in the passage, a whisper of movement, too swift to trace. The theater, he murmured. It holds secrets still. The orchestra struck a final note, a melancholic chord that seemed to mourn the fallen, yet herald a new act. The fog thickened, cloaking the Lyceum in mystery. But Poirot's resolve remained unshaken. The case was closed, the killers bound for justice. But the velvet folds of the theater whispered of dramas yet to unfold. As he stepped into the night, his silhouette framed against the gaslit street, Poirot adjusted his hat, his voice a quiet vow. The stage is clear, but the heart of man, it is never without its shadows.